Valentina, and usually on my channel I'm talking about my own book that I'm writing called The Tideways Comes Back that's publishing in spring/summer 2026. But today I'm going to be tier ranking every single book that I read in 2024. Here are the categories. So first of all, coming in at the top, we have the 5-star category. Boom shakalaka, yes lord.
Boom shakalaka! Yes, God! Yes, God!
This is a 5-star category, and it takes a lot. Like, I'm really picky with my 5 stars. I don't just like to give them out willy-nilly. I think what constitutes a 5-star book to me is a book that I literally cannot put down. A book that, like, I'm going throughout my day and I'm thinking about those characters, I'm thinking about that story. I can't wait to get back home just so I can read that book. I'm not, like, super pretentious with the type of writing in books, but, like, if the book is not flowing well, if there's loads of grammar mistakes, or if it just feels like too low of a level, of like a reading level, I suppose, there needs to be good writing. Like, there needs to be, like, I need to be reading it and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, like, this author can write. I can very much read a bad book that's written very well, and vice versa. Like, I can read a book that maybe isn't written as well but has a really good story that I'm really in love with and I'm still in love with the characters. But you have to have one or the other. So a 5-star book for me is a book that's written really well, that I'm always thinking about, I'm in love with the characters, and I'm recommending you to everyone that I ever see that I know who reads, ever. The next category is wait, they don't love you. Just realized, if you guys don't get the internet references that I'm referring to, this is gonna be really, really embarrassing. But anyway, 4-star books are books that were nearly 5 stars but just weren't there. I also, like, I rate books like 4.5 stars or 4.7 stars, so like I rate in between. Like, a 4.7 star book is a book that was just near a 5-star, but there was something wrong with it. There was something missing, something that I can't quite put my finger on, or maybe I can put my finger on it, but because it was there, I therefore cannot award you the 5-star rating. The next category is beautiful gowns.
When I say the name Adele, what comes to mind?
Young singer, good singer.
Taylor Swift.
Okay, great gowns, beautiful gowns.
3-star books are books that were just okay. Like, it's very rare for me to rate a book below 3 stars because I'm just like, I feel bad. And I feel like ever since I've become a writer, that I'm a lot more conscious of, like, how much love and effort and time it takes into writing a book. Not just into planning it, but also editing it, rounds and rounds of editing. And I know that authors have a connection to their stories, so now I'm a lot more, like, I suppose, mindful when I'm critiquing books. But then again, all of that being said, in this video I'm going to be brutally honest, because I do think that you can appreciate an author's work in the sense that I appreciate how much hard work you put into this book and still not like the story. And you know what? Some of them are not putting in effort. The 3-star books are books that are just okay. It's either the plot was lacking, the characters were lacking, I didn't feel any connection to it, I wouldn't read you again. I might recommend you to people, I might not recommend you to people. Some books that are 3 stars in here are actually, like, good, like nice. Like, it's nice. But some of these are books that, like, I was genuinely struggling to get through, and I just put it into 3 stars because I was like, someone else might like it, it just wasn't for me. The next category is And the Crowd Goes Home. The Crowd Goes Home. These are my 2-star books, and 2-star books are books that, like, I just, like, you were bad, I wouldn't even recommend you to someone else. I was struggling to finish the book. I don't think it should have been published, maybe. Oh, that's a bit mean. That's going too far. No, but I mean it. I do mean it. Yeah. And the final category is the 1-star category, and that is, I'd say, Pull the Trigger.
Okay, gun to your head.
Okay.
Which pair should I wear?
Oh, gun to my head, I'd say Pull the Trigger.
These are books that, like, I never DNF books. I never DNF a book. I will never DNF a book. I do recommend, for more sane people who value their time, that if you don't like a book, you do not finish the book, you close the book and you put it away. But I just have to finish every book that I read. I don't know what it is about me that I literally cannot put a book down without finishing it. So even if it takes me a year to finish it, I will finish it, or I'll DNF by accident, in the sense that I just forgot about the book. But mainly I like to finish one book before I move on to the next. So sometimes a book can put me in a serious slump because I don't DNF. Maybe I should start DNFing. Anyway, that's enough justifying the categories. Let's get into the rating. The first book that I read last year was called The Phonebox at the Edge of the World. I describe this book as a contemporary literary fiction. I don't really actually know, but it's based on real life events, like real life stories that the author had heard in her research, and it's about the aftermath of a tsunami in Japan. We're following this main character Yui. I hope I'm saying her name right. Basically, there's this phone box in this really beautiful garden. I love the way the author described this garden because I literally can see it so vividly in my head. But it's about this phone box that people go to. They literally travel, they pilgrimage to this place so that they can talk to their dead, lost loved ones. We see Yui go through all the stages of grief and basically just see her heal throughout the book. It was such a funny, like, I love this author because she balanced such depressing themes with such funny storytelling at the same time. Like there was so much humor in it, which was really interesting because I would literally go from like crying, like actually crying, to laughing in the next chapter. She also did this thing where she would alternate between the plot and then little like tidbits related to the plot. So at the end of one chapter she would like include like a shopping list, like quite literally one of the chapters she included a shopping list, or she would include a piece from a newspaper going on at the time. But we also meet this other main character who it becomes their little thing. They always plan to coordinate their travel to the phone box together, and there is a subplot of romance in the book. But when I say subplot, like I really do mean subplot. Like I wouldn't describe this book as romance, but there is the romance in there. You do see the characters like form their different relationships. You also see her go to things like shelters after she's lost her house after the tsunami. Like it flashes back between past and present. It is honestly such a great book. Like I feel like I'm the worst person at describing books because my brain is jumping to I'm thinking of like, what did I miss, what do I say, what do I not say? But I really enjoyed this book, as you can probably tell, and it is going into the 5-star category. Boom shakalaka, yes lord. There was literally nothing. Ooh. Okay, there's one only one tiny thing that I would change about this book, and it's simply the way that the subplot of the romance ends, because I was thinking it kind of gave the vibes of like, you know, when authors write books but then the publishers are like, no, sorry, you got to put romance into this. That's kind of how the romance felt, in the sense that like it didn't feel like she really loved that man. Like it didn't, like the characters had so much chemistry, don't get me wrong, they had so much chemistry, and I could tell that he really loved her. Trust me, I could tell that. But obviously Yui has lost a lot of her. Yui is alone, like everyone in her family is gone. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but I feel like we know this very early on into the book, so it's not really that much of a spoiler. But Yui has lost every single person in her family, including her daughter, including her mother. She's lost every single person. So she has obviously got a lot of trauma, and I could kind of tell that like her trauma was holding her back from loving the male main character. I don't know, I just don't think I was fully convinced that she loved him, if that makes sense. But that's the only thing that I would change, is like get rid of the romance completely or really commit to it. But apart from that, this book was actually fantastic. Like it was all round 5 stars. It will make you cry, it will make you laugh, it will make you do all of the things. I'm not even someone who like I be crying at books and stuff, because I don't know, I'll cry at movies all the time, but crying at books is so different for me, because I'm literally crying at like words on a page, and I'm like crying at scenes that I'm imagining in my head, which I do anyway. But yeah, this book was a 5 star. 5 star. Okay, I didn't read It Ends With Us next, but I have so much to say about this book that I'm just gonna fast forward to It Ends With Us. It Ends With Us. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about this main character called Lily Bloom. She's recently lost her dad, and she's now like kind of thinking of her life as like a fresh start, because her family there's a lot of family trauma there. She moves to this place, I forgot the name, I don't know if it was Boston or if Boston was where she used to live, or where she moves to this place, she opens up a flower store. I'm not telling this in chronological order, but the main gist of the story is that she meets this man, his name is Ryle, and she falls in love with him very, very quickly, but their relationship is really not perfect at all. Ryle is this rich surgeon, his job is his whole life, and Lily Lily and him are quite opposite. He has this whole life, and I can see why someone would be very attracted to the life that he leads. And this is also another story where we're telling past, present, and we have the past where she actually fell in love with this homeless guy when she was in high school. He lived in an abandoned house outside her house, and she falls in love with him, and we're kind of seeing the parallels between both relationships. But guys, before I tell you more about this story, I just want to make it very clear that, you know how I told you it's past, present? All of the things that we see in the past, we see through letters that Lily writes to her idol, someone who she really loves and she really aspires to be. But why is her idol Ellen DeGeneres? As in, we are writing letters to Ellen DeGeneres. That's completely how we see her past stories. Like, letters that she doesn't send off, she just writes them. Like, I'm like, of all people, like, Jesus Christ, maybe, I don't know, like, could have picked anyone but Ellen DeGeneres. And I hated it so much because I hate when books break the fourth wall. I'm like, you can mention celebrities and you can mention like people in real life in your books, obviously, but it was the fact that it was Ellen DeGeneres, and in the letter sometimes she would be like, oh yeah, by the way, like, I'm in love with this homeless boy. Also, I saw you in Finding Dory, you were really great. Also, Ellen, I watched your show last night. I really didn't like those two people you had on, and it's real episodes that she's referring to. And I'm like, why would you do such a thing? Like, I saw people saying online that whenever a letter to Ellen came up, they would just skip. But like, you can't skip those letters because that's quite literally how we see half of the content of the book, like half of the content. The thing that I liked most about this book was when it ended, actually. When it ended. And I don't even mean that in like, oh, I loved it when it ended. No, I quite literally mean like the ending of this book really saved it for me, like the conclusion and the resolution and the growth that I genuinely do believe the main character had. If anything is good in that book, that is it. But quite literally, the main character Lily, her internal monologue does not pass the Bechdel test. I felt like there were constant times where actual important things are happening, and this girl is thinking about a man. And trust me, I get it, especially because I'm writing a romance book now. I'm very aware that like, when the romance is the plot of the book, the main character is going to be thinking about the romance a lot. But it would be times where like, we have no business thinking about a man. Like, something terrible has happened and you're talking about how like hot your man is. I just don't get it. I'm so sorry. It was really jarring for me. I just think also that the main character Lily was just really not likable at all. She was not likable. Guys, there's literally a moment in the book. So I mentioned that she falls in love with this homeless guy. His name was Atlas. And there's literally a scene in the book, in one of her letters to Ellen, where she's describing one time where they're in her bed. Mind you, like, her parents don't know that he exists. Like, she is sneaking this homeless boy into her house, giving him food, letting him take showers. Like, she literally found him outside, guys, and she lets him stay with her in her bed. But there's a scene where they're like in bed together. He's just made her cookies. He really loves to bake. It's his whole thing. He's really good at cooking because he wasn't always homeless, mind you. Just thought I'd add that in. And he must have said something like, oh, like, you really love my cookies. I don't quite remember the scene like verbatim, but this babe literally says, oh, this guy is so conceited, he's so full of himself, like, I just hate how arrogant he is. Like, I remember closing the book and I'm literally like, the only reason why this boy is not dead from pneumonia is because you let him into your house. He is literally a squatter in your house. He's literally only still alive. You found him basically dying. And you want to be, oh, he's so arrogant, he's so cocky. Girl, he literally is on the brink of death. He's hanging on by a thread and you are the one holding it. Like, I understand that she was 15 in those like scenes with Atlas, but it was really like weird. It was really weird hearing how she spoke about him sometimes. Initially, when I fully finished reading this book, like when I closed it, I rated it 3 stars. I rated it 3 stars, like at the max. I don't think that Colleen Hoover's writing is good. I think the only reason why I rated it 3 stars was because I liked the conclusion of the book. I liked how it ended the way that I wanted it to end. Also, I read this near to when I was just getting back into reading again. So as I read more books, the rating just kept going down and down. And currently it's logged as 2.7 stars in my reading tracker. But following the movie adaptation, which was terrible, it was terrible. You completely missed the mark in actually focusing on what the story was about, which was navigating a toxic and abusive relationship. You completely subverted it, tried to make it this flowery, quite literally romance. It was really weird to see. The casting was bad, the clothing was bad, and now fast forward to February 2024, the actual actors have lawsuits against each other for harassment. And I'm like, are we confused about what the book? There was harassment on the set of a film about domestic violence and abuse? What? And all in all, I decided that this book belongs in, I'd say, pull the trigger, because I would say pull the trigger. I would quite literally do anything but have to read this book or hear about this movie again. I'd rather, guys, I can't do it, because this book was objectively bad. Like, it was objectively bad. And I think the reason why I rated it 3 stars was purely because, like, one thing Colleen Hoover did well, once again, when I say her writing's bad, I mean that she writes her books like they're YA, but you're writing about adults. Like, she writes, the way her characters think and speak, and her actual writing itself is just so simple, but not simple in a simple and effective good way. Like, some writers write simply, but it's very effective. She just writes like this is her first time writing a book, like she's just come off Wattpad. I'm so sorry. I sound so mean, but honestly, I don't really like Colleen Hoover at all, because she herself and her family even are very problematic. So I don't even feel bad saying any of this. The one thing that I do think she did well in this book was making us fall in love and hate the main character in the same way that Lily did, if that makes sense. The main character, Ryle. I genuinely didn't know how the book was going to end, and it actually was an emotional roller coaster, because you would see the good and see the bad, and it was really good at showing kind of why people stay in a toxic and abusive relationship, because we could really see how like things would flip-flop between them. It was very, very intense. But that was the only thing that was good. And then the ending, I'd say pull the trigger. And I'm not even just hating on Colleen Hoover because it's fun to do that. I have enjoyed books by her before. Verity, I actually really enjoyed reading that book, but that was it. There was no other book by her that I've enjoyed reading. I will never read a book by her again. Okay, next we're going to move on to Fourth Wing, which was the second book that I read last year. Now, Fourth Wing is about this main character, Violet. Her mum is the general of Basgate War College. And in their society, there's different groups that you can decide to join once you turn 21. Basically, different jobs that you can choose to take on once you turn 21. So there are some people who are scribes, like they go to the college to become a scribe. Some go to the college to become a rider. Violet chose to become a rider, and you get bonded to a dragon, and you take part in loads of these brutal challenges where quite literally people are dying. People are always dying. People are always dying in this book. The challenges are not like simple, let's spar on a map. They do that, but there'll be challenges like, let's cross this parapet, and it's this like thin strip of rock, and you're like 100 feet above the ground, and if you slip and fall in the rain, like it was raining, you will die. Basically, the whole general gist is that you have this enemy, there's a looming enemy that we know we're training to fight against, but you don't really find out too much about the enemy until the end of the book. And then in the second book, we find out a lot more about the enemy. It basically follows Violet and then this other guy, Xaden. Xaden is the main male character, and they are enemies. This book is an enemies to lovers book, but upon meeting him, the first thing she says is, this man is so fine. Like, that's the first thing she says. Like, quite literally, upon seeing him, not even meeting, not even talking, upon seeing him for the first time, she's like, this man is so fine. I'm like, this is not an enemies to lovers. This is a love at first sight trope. You couldn't convince me. The reason why they're enemies is because Violet's mother, I don't know if these are spoilers, but I don't think it is, because you find it out so early on into the book, so don't worry, I'm not spoiling too much. But like I said, Violet's mom, she's the big general, she's in charge of basically everything, and Xaden's family is part of the rebellion, and the rebellion of these group of people that went against basically what Violet's mom and all the higher up people are doing, the propaganda that they're feeding their society, they are rebelling against that. And Violet's mom is responsible for the death of Xaden's dad and all of the other rebellion people. Her mum is responsible for killing all of them, and all of their kids as punishment are sent into this war college as well, because getting sent into this war college is basically a death sentence. If you get out of it, you are really respected. That's why riders are really respected, because they go through so much just to graduate, like just to graduate. And when you graduate, you go on to become like part of the the hero people. So it doesn't end there, like you're fighting for your life every single day for the rest of your life. Now, I actually really enjoyed this book. Now, this book is another book in the same sense as Colleen Hoover, where it's written like a YA. Like, it's so like almost aggravatingly simple, the way that the writer writes it. But I didn't mind that too much because I think this was the first fantasy I'd read last year since like I was in primary school. So I think that's another reason why I enjoyed it so much, because it was so new to me. And now since reading more fantasy, I'm like, Fouth thing, it really wasn't that good. It really wasn't that good. But at the time, I really enjoyed it. And also because my sister had just recently read it, we were talking about it the whole time, and I love like that reading experience that you have. But like, I don't really remember whether these opinions are about the first book or the second book. So I'm now going to talk about the second book. In the second book, there's a really big, oh my goodness, I'm such a horrible explainer. There's a really big plot twist at the end of book one, like a huge plot twist. And I feel like at the start of book two, we completely just skipped over that plot twist. Like, everybody got over it way too quickly, because I know if it was me, it would have taken the entire book to get over that. But in book two, we know who our enemies are, and we're basically fighting to fight those enemies. But there's also a lot of secrets that Xaden keeps from Violet. Like, he knows so much. You know, he is the son of the leader of the rebellion. He knows more than literally anyone in this book, and everyone respects him, which I think is kind of cool. But he keeps so many secrets from Violet, and I don't even really like Xaden and Violet together, I'll be honest with you. I don't even really ship them. Xaden annoys me most of the time. Xaden is so annoying. The first 200 pages of Iron Flame were not needed. The first 200 pages were so slow that I nearly DNF'd. The second part, the book is split into two acts, I suppose. In the second part of the book, that's where the plot of the book really starts to come in, but we've already read 300 pages. I'm talking about the hardback copy. In the paperback copy, you've read 400 pages and the plot is not plotting. The plot is not plotting whatsoever. Xaden and Violet are always arguing about, oh, you're keeping secrets from me. Oh, but you just need to ask me questions and I'll tell you the secrets. I don't know which questions to ask. Well, I can't tell you anything then. That was, guys, that conversation they had like 20 times. I really don't like the repetitiveness of Rebecca Yarros's writing. She repeats things a lot, and it's like, sometimes you repeat things for the impact, but please, not in every single chapter. I cannot do this. In book one, I feel like it was the I might die today, I might die today. You're not going to die, you're the main character, you have plot armor, you're not going to die. Stop telling us you're going to die, you're not going to die. In the second book, it was, oh my goodness, I'm keeping secrets from my friends, I might lose my friends. Oh no, Xaden's keeping secrets from me, I don't know if I can trust him. That was the entire book, and it was so repetitive. I nearly DNF'd Iron Flame, I really did. I was not going to finish reading it, but my sister told me I have to prevail, and to be honest, the ending did save it. One thing about Rebecca Yarros is she can write a fight scene. I love reading her fight scenes and her action scenes. I can really always vividly picture it, but I really do not like the random deaths. Like, there in the first book, I feel like a lot of insignificant characters were dying, apart from one character, Shayla! I'm not going to say which character it is because that's a spoiler, but if you've read the book, you probably know who I'm talking about. The character that dies literally right at the end of the book. I remember I was reading that in my lecture theatre. If my uni's watching it, no, I wasn't, I take that back. But I was reading it and I literally closed the book and I just... I really had to compose myself because my favourite character in that entire book died in like the last few chapters, and there was no need for that. In the second book, in Iron Flame, it felt like people were just dying for the shock factor, and it's not shocking anymore. You know in Squid Game, where after a while, after everyone just started dying, it just became like, this is annoying, I don't like this anymore, why is everyone dead? That's how it kind of felt in Iron Flame. Like, people were just, characters were getting knocked out left, right and centre, and it just felt like you didn't even need to introduce them. Like, she would introduce new characters just to kill them in a few chapters. It was just so, like, I'm not shocked anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's actually now just jarring. Like, I am just gonna close the book. I don't want to see another person die for no reason. Like, for no reason, mind you. I feel like Rebecca kept killing people so that we could always be constantly aware that this is dangerous. This place where we are, what we're doing, this mission that we're on is dangerous. But like, I can understand that it's dangerous without you having to kill off insignificant characters every 2 seconds. Like, I get it. Like, don't tell me the name of the character and show me their relationships with other people just to kill them 2 seconds later. There's no point. It felt annoying. So overall, I rated Fourth Wing 4.85 stars. So it's going into the way they don't love you like I love you, because this book really actually wasn't that good. But I really did enjoy it, and I think that was because it was one of the first fantasy books that I had read in like 10 years. But Iron Flame, I put in Beautiful Gowns, but honestly, I could put it in The Crowd Goes Home. Like, the first half of Iron Flame is in, I'd say, Pull the Trigger. I'm not even joking. The first 300 pages of that book, or 400 if you were reading the paperback, is in, I'd say, Pull the Trigger, because I did want to pull the trigger. Even in the second part, when I said the plot kicked in, there were still points where I was like, I want to pull the trigger. Can we talk about the unneeded intimate scenes, the unintimate spicy scenes? Can we talk about that? There was way too much. There was literally, guys, I couldn't even make this up. There was literally a scene where we just come back from war. We just come back from, like, people are dying. So many people have just died. And the next scene is literally Violet and Xaden banging. I can't make this up. And I was literally like, there's no way the author thought that this was the right place to put this scene in. I feel like I'm biased because I just don't really like reading spice anyway, but when it makes sense, it's okay. Like, in the first book, I feel like every single scene made sense. In the second book, it didn't. But actually, whilst I'm still talking about Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, I really do think that they're, in the first book especially, and the reason why I was so reluctant to rate it so high, and the reason why I say that the book was really not that good, is because I don't think that Rebecca really thought out the plot of the book. I think that it was an idea that she wrote and just didn't really think about where anything was going or what anything meant at any time. There were a lot of things that just didn't make sense. For starters, I didn't understand why people had to die. When we're training in the War College, I didn't understand why if you fall you actually die. Like, I didn't understand why we can't just put a net at the bottom and save people and train them to become better. Like, you're literally recruiting people. Like, you are, first of all, you're like conscripting some people, like the rebellion kids, into this War College. You're making all these people join because you have all of these big enemies that you need to fight, but then you're killing off your army, hundreds of them, day after day. You're reading out a list of all the people that have died, and the list is never ending. I just didn't really understand that, and there are actually quite a lot of things in that first book that actually don't make sense. I can't remember all of them right now, but I feel like in the second book she tried to compensate for that by trying to explain certain things, but it's kind of like an afterthought. Like, I would have liked it to have been explained in that first book. So that first book got its rating purely just because I just loved it. Like, I just loved the vibe, and I loved my reading experience, like talking about it with my sister. But the second book kind of opened my eyes, especially after I had read other books. It just opened my eyes to how, like, kind of not really that good this book was. Sorry. The next book I'm talking about is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. This book, everybody knows this one. It's a TV show. It's about this main character, Belly, and she has these two, like, family friends, Jeremiah and Conrad, and she's been in love with Conrad since she was a child, but he never really noticed her because she was, like, you know, the younger one, you know, she wasn't as cool as everyone. Conrad, her older brother, and Jeremiah would always go off and do their own thing, and she would always be stuck with the mums, like, doing childish baby things. But this summer she becomes pretty. She's, like, glowed up, I suppose, and now the two boys, Jeremiah and Conrad, are noticing her, and they both profess their love to her, and it's this big love triangle. The whole series is a love triangle. In the book, in this first book, it really is focused on Conrad. She has a whole other love interest, Cameron, who, by the way, is so fine in the book. Like, the way he's described in this book, he is so fine, and in the show he looks nothing like how he's described in this book. The actor is still good looking, don't get me wrong. I just mean that he's not the Cameron that I read in this book. I genuinely really enjoyed this book. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think the whole setting of Cousins Beach became so much more likable reading about it as opposed to when we were watching it in the show, because I don't think it, like, obviously the setting of the beach doesn't play a big role in the show because we're focused on the characters and their relationships, but in the book, like, the whole setting, it was such a nice read, and I read it right at the start of May. We were just coming into summer, and it was just such a quick and easy read, and I really actually enjoy Jenny Han's writing. I do not enjoy Conrad. I don't like him. I don't flipping like Conrad. I think that Belly should have ended up with Cameron. Conrad ruined it. That's okay, that's fine, I'll move on. Jeremiah, in the book, Jeremiah's love confession to Belly happens like within the last few chapters, and it was so out of the blue that I did not even get a sense of Jeremiah likes Belly when I was reading the book, and then it was just like, oh, by the way, I'm in love with you. It was so weird. It was actually so weird to see. Conrad she loved the entire time, and we could tell by the way that he was acting, even though he didn't want to admit it. We could tell that he liked Belly too. But I just don't really like him as a person, and I don't think that she should be with him. And in the book, I'm neither Team Conrad nor Team Jeremiah. I'm Team Cameron. But watching the show, I'm Team Jelly. I'm Team Jeremiah and Belly. I will never be Team Conrad. There's not a universe where I could be Team Conrad. It doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, all that being said, I actually really enjoyed this book, and I would actually recommend it if you like YA romances. Whilst the plot of the story is not a plot that I really enjoyed, like, this is a love triangle between two brothers when there's a perfectly fine and fit third option that you could go with. Mind you, to me, Jeremiah and Conrad are like Belly's cousins. Like, I don't know, guys. I don't know about you, but when I have family friends that are that close, they're my cousins. I think of them as my cousins. Why are you in love with them? Both of them. Why is there a triangle? These are basically your brothers. So whilst the plot is not something that I really enjoy or would recommend, I really love Jenny's Hand's writing, and I love the past present vibe that we had going on, where we're looking at her flashbacks to her childhood, and then we're looking at the present day. Like, it was so good. I rated this book, I think, 4.5 stars, so it's going into Next we have Get a Life Chloe Brown. This book is about a main character, Chloe. She comes from a very rich, very affluent family. She's talking about different wings of their house. Like, Chloe is very rich, but she has chronic pain, and she's been sheltered for most of her life because of this, and she decides that she wants to finally take a reign of her own life, and she goes out and she gets an apartment, and she actually lives in this like not so nice apartment complex where she doesn't really get on with the landlord. You can tell where that's going. And her family, her sister, she has two sisters, Eve and Danny, and they are so nosy. They are so invested in everything Chloe does. Also, they hate her apartment as well because, like I said, they're very rich, they're very well off. Like, she doesn't ever have to worry about money. She just chose this apartment complex because she wanted to feel like a normal girl for once. Yes, we have this main character, Red, who is the landlord, and they don't get on at all. I wouldn't say they are enemies to lovers because I don't think that you can have enemies to lovers in a regular romance book. But they are definitely, we don't like each other, two lovers. And I'll let you guys read it. Because this is genuinely the best romance book I have ever read. Talia Hibbett's writing is insane. She writes so poetically, but in a way where she's not doing too much. Like, she's still telling you the story. Her pacing is impeccable. Her pacing is perfect. Her pacing is actually faultless, guys. I'm not even joking. And I wish I had the book on me right now, but it's actually at home. I wish I had it on me so I could read you some of my favorite quotes, but her writing is just so lovely. I loved how Chloe, she's a black main character, but she's not a character that's too caricatured. Like, she just feels so real. She is so real, and she's not typically like a likable character. She's not the nicest of people, but you still love her so much because every decision she makes, you understand. I also liked how it was third person, and we got to see both characters. Like, it was like dual POV, but it wasn't dual POV like blatantly dual POV, but it was. The one thing I didn't like about this book was how the ending felt so rushed to me. Like, I felt like the conflict and the resolution happened all within the same few chapters, which was so confusing because, like, we had this beautiful story where we're seeing amazing character development and growth from both main characters, and then we have like this conflict and resolution that literally happened within like the last few chapters of this book, and I was really confused, to be honest with you. But all that being said, I would recommend this book to every single person. Whether you enjoy romance or not, you will enjoy Get a Life Chloe Brown. And so I want to put this book in Boom Shakalaka, yes Lord. But because of the way it ended, I quite literally was like, this is not Boom Shakalaka-ing. There are faults. I'm seeing the faults. So it's going into Wait, They Don't Love You Like I Love You. But like, they're on the cusp. Get a Life Chloe Brown is on the cusp of Boom Shakalaka. Next we have the Heartstopper graphic novels. I've only read 2 of them. I'm going to read the rest of them. I literally read both of these in like an hour. Like, it was so fast to like flick through. I love Nick and Charlie. I love Nick and Charlie. Heartstopper is about this main character, Charlie. He's been openly gay since like year 10 and he was bullied for it, but now he's really like coming into his own skin, I suppose, in terms of he's just now openly gay. Nick is the captain of the rugby team. Like, he's this really popular dude, and him and Charlie fall in love. That's what I have to tell you. Him and Charlie fall in love. They become best friends first. They become best friends, but over time, Nick is kind of like, wait a damn minute, like, I think I actually might love Charlie, but I'm straight and I'm captain of the rugby team, but like, I'm actually in love with this boy. Like, I'm in love with him. So we're seeing them navigate themselves. I love Heartstopper. It's set in the United Kingdom. You know, they go to a grammar school. There's a girls' grammar school. There's a boys' grammar school. If you've watched the show, you know that like there's a whole friend group and we see all of their relationships in the show. I love everyone. I love every single character in this graphic novel, in this book. I love Nick and Charlie, and I was literally just flicking through and I'm like, oh, I love them. I'm kicking my feet, I'm giggling, I'm smiling. But yeah, these were both boom shakalaka yes Lord. There's literally nothing that I would change about these graphic novels. Like, I just love it, and everything about it was perfect. And I think if you're looking for like a quick read, something that will just like make you happy and smile in an instant, then I'd recommend the Heartstopper graphic novels. But whilst we're still talking about Alice Oseman, I am going to talk about Solitaire, which was her debut novel, and I feel bad critiquing authors' debut novels because it's their debut novel. Like, no one is a perfect writer on their debut, but all that being said, Solitaire was so... Okay, let me tell you what it was about first. Solitaire is about this main character, Tori, who's Charlie's older sister, and it's in the whole like Heartstopper universe. But obviously she wrote Solitaire first before she wrote the Heartstopper graphic novels. She just fell in love with Nick and Charlie as side characters, and she was like, let me write their story as well, which I think is really nice. But Solitaire, she is this like really like depressed main character. We don't know that she has depression, but she's a very like gloomy, down character, very pessimistic, doesn't like anything in life. And honestly guys, there were parts of this book, I literally remember at the time I was reading it, I had folded pages that I wanted to read when I did a review of the book, just so you could understand just how not good it was. But I don't have the book on me right now, so I can't do that. One thing being said is I'm very aware that this was Alice's first ever book, so obviously her writing's not going to be perfect. I would hate for someone to look at the first draft that I ever wrote of The Tide Always Comes Back and judge me on that. But that being said, I've really put a lot of time and effort into refining my craft and making sure the book is good, and I just feel like none of that was put into this book. The writing was bad, the pacing was bad, the flow was bad, or I won't say it was bad, I just didn't enjoy it at all, and I would never recommend this book. I gave it to my little cousin because she's 13 and she's just getting into reading, and I feel like maybe if you've never read a book before and you're below the age of 13, then you might enjoy this book. But if you don't fall into any of those categories, you will not. It was really poor writing. I kid you not, there would be parts where she'd be like, I went to the phone, I picked up the phone. Oh, I hate phones. I hate phone calls. I put down the phone. I got back into bed. And you know, you could argue that the way that she wrote was like a stylistic choice. You're writing about a character who hates life and hates everything in life. But then it's just very jarring to read. Like, it's not an enjoyable thing to read. It didn't feel like a stylistic choice. Oh yes, I forgot to say, the plot of the book is that there's this program called Solitaire that's basically terrorizing the school. Like, it's a website and they basically just do loads of these big pranks in school, and it's this rebellious thing. There's a main character called Michael who is obsessed with Tori, and he basically spends the whole time trying to be her friend, and she keeps pushing him away. And it's so annoying because, you know, like after the first time, like, we get it, like, you don't really like love, but the second time it's like, oh okay, like obviously it's like you're falling back into the cycle again. But the third time and then the fourth time, and it's like, why is he even still trying? Like, I know he's in love with her, but like, this babe does not like you. The main character is so mean. There's so many trigger warnings in this book that I even forgot to mention. Charlie has so many mental health issues that he's struggling with, which I noticed that in the most recent season of the show Heartstopper, they're starting to bring parts of Solitaire into it. But Charlie has so many problems that he's dealing with that I feel like were not dealt with properly in the book. And yeah, my explanation has been really poor, but I ended up putting this book into And the Crowd Goes Home. because I don't think that this book is, like, I feel like there's an audience for it. I feel so bad because I actually love Alice Oseman. Like, you don't get it. I'm actually her biggest fan. I follow her on Instagram. I'm checking what she's doing all the time. I love Heartstopper. I love the show. I love the graphic novels. I love it. But like, it was just, this book was so bad, and I was so disappointed because I bought it already loving Alice Oseman, and I was so excited, and then I was just so disappointed, and I feel terrible saying it was bad, but it really was objectively bad. And please, Alice, forgive me. Please, Alice, forgive me. And all the Heartstopper fans, please forgive me. Please. Please. The next book I'm going to talk about is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This is my favourite book that I've ever read to date. This book was fantastic. This book was sensational. It's based on ancient Nigerian mythology. We're talking about gods and goddesses. Basically, Zaylee lives in this land where magic is banned. All magic is banned because the king has personal beef with magic. And so everyone who was part of the magic people, and they're called the diviners, everyone who was a diviner, all their parents were killed. Zaylee's mum was killed. They were literally massacred. Anyone who had any trace of power and magic was killed so that magic could finally be dead in their land. But Zaylee is the chosen one. She is chosen to go on a quest to bring magic back, and the way she does this is basically the king's daughter, his own daughter Amari, steals this scroll which is like the key to bringing magic back, and she's like on the run and she bumps into Zaylee, and that's kind of how they meet. But that's like the most simplistic way of describing this book. This book is so magical. It's very much an allegory for real life. Like, I watched a lot of the interviews of the main character talking about how it's very synonymous with racism in the real world, because whilst everyone in this book is black, it's set in a very fictional Nigeria. Like, the town names don't make sense. These are places that are miles away, and she's put them as towns that are next door. But everybody in this book is black. All the royals and the higher up people are all lighter skin, of lighter complexion, whereas all of the maggots, which is the slur that they call them, are the darker skinned people. And when I tell you, in this book, the violence and the torture that people experience is actually disgusting, to the point where you're itching your skin. It is that terrible. There are scenes, like, talking about Squid Game. I've spoken about Squid Game so much in this episode, but you know how in Squid Game you have the rich people who set up this game for all of these poor people who are literally begging, dying for money to compete in against, and they're just dying. There's a scene in this book, and this book was written way before Squid Game, before you want to say that she copied it. There's a scene in this book which is like that, where you have all of the rich, affluent people like making all the poor people like fight to their death just to like have a chance of getting something that they can never achieve. Like, this book was so sad. It was actually so sad, but it was so magical, and the settings and the description of magic and the description of everything, and the way Tomi writes, and the relationships between people. There's an enemies to lovers subtrope in this. It is just so fantastic, and I love this book, and there is actually nothing that I would change. I feel like when I was reading it, there were things where I was like, I don't really like this too much. Like, actually, there's 2 subplot romances, and one of them I really don't enjoy. Everyone in this book falls in love with each other. Like, there's no one who's just remaining single, and I just think that it's okay for some characters to not be in love. Like, it's okay for some characters to not be in love. So I didn't enjoy that aspect, but there were things that I would read that I'd be like, I don't really like that. But by the time I got to the end of this book, I didn't remember what I didn't like anymore, and I didn't care. The ending of this book was sensational. It was exceptional. I can't even harp on it enough. Like, it was so good, and I genuinely think that everybody, if you're into fantasy, you should read this book, and this book should have the same hype as all the other really popping fantasy books have. It's actually becoming a film. It's not becoming a film, and the casting was recently announced, and it's this star-studded cast. Like, all of the big names in Hollywood are going to be in this film. I don't actually really like the casting choices that they've made too much. Like, Cynthia Erivo is playing Admiral Kea, and if you read the book, you'd understand that is one of the best castings that they have ever done. Because when I picture Admiral Kea, it is Cynthia Erivo. Like, it actually is Cynthia Erivo. But the main character castings for Zaylee and Amari, I don't really like them too much. This video is not about that. This video is about the book, and the book was fantastic, and I hope the film does it justice, which I'm sure it will. The cast that they have chosen, they will do it justice. I just feel like when you're writing a book about Nigerian mythology, Yoruba mythology, Yoruba is a language that they're speaking in the book, and there was a perfect opportunity to cast Nigerian actors. You did a full open casting call for Nigerian actors, yet the main characters are not even Nigerian. That book is going into boom shakalaka, yes lord, because there's nothing that I would change. Next we're talking about Shatter Me. Shatter Me is a book following a main character, Juliet. Following Juliet, she's been locked up for a long time. She's literally been in this like prison for a long time. It's not a prison, it's like a correctional facility, I suppose. She's taken out of that prison because Warner, who is the leader of the establishment, thinks that she would be very useful to his whatever wicked plans he has going on. There's also a main character, Adam, and if you haven't read the book, I can't actually tell you too much about Adam because it would be a spoiler, because who he is not who you think he is. It's basically this dystopian society where the world has just gone to absolute rubbish. She said she has not seen a bird in years. She literally has dreams about seeing birds. But this book is a book that was huge on TikTok. It was huge on TikTok, and it was so huge that I bought the entire series without even reading the first book, and then I didn't even really like the first book that much at all. And if you haven't read the book and you're dying to read it, maybe don't listen to this review so much because I'm going to be dropping like tiny spoilers. But basically, Juliet and Adam, they're a whole love interest thing, and the first time we see them meet is right towards the start of the book when she's still locked up in that prison. She obviously gets released. She's released into Warner's like re-establishment building. She's literally being held. She's literally being kidnapped. She's been kidnapped and she's being held hostage against her will. First of all, there's literally Stockholm syndrome going on, but like reverse, like Warner is in love with Juliet. Juliet is not in love with Warner. I do not ship Juliet and Warner, and the fact that I know, I'm halfway through reading the second book in this story, and the fact that I know that Juliet ends up with Warner pisses me off because I don't ship them at all. I think he's actually very abusive, emotionally abusive, and the things he gets her to do is insane. Plus she's literally his kid, like he has kidnapped her and he's holding her hostage, and he forces her to wear things that he wants her to wear, forces her to do things that he wants her to do, and it's so weird and she can't escape. She's literally being held hostage. I don't like that. Then her and Adam's relationship, I really did enjoy the way that Adam actually loved her, but it just kind of felt like it was rushed. It really felt rushed. We actually found out that he had been in love with her since they were children, and I hate things like that because it kind of like, you know, when you were in primary school and you'd end your stories with, and it was all a dream. That's how finding out that Adam had been in love with Juliet since they were children felt, because I like to see the relationship between characters develop. I don't like you to just like, you know, skip past that by saying, oh, I've been in love with you since we were children. Like, I don't like that. I don't really like that. But guys, I'm losing daylight and I'm really hungry and I'd love to go shopping. So these reviews are gonna get shorter and shorter as we go on. Shatter Me is going into the beautiful gowns category. I feel like there was a very amazing concept there. I love Kenji. I love Kenji so much. By the way, the whole plot of what I could see so far is that she's been kidnapped and she's trying to find a way to escape this being kidnapped. She doesn't want to be part of Warner's wicked scheme. She doesn't want to be a part of that. That's kind of what the plot is, and we're kind of following that. We're in this dystopian world where the re-establishment has taken over the entire society. They live by their rules, you know, food is in rations. Most people are orphans. Children all go to like the same schools. We're literally given food in like microwavable packages. The re-establishment are in control and they want to take over the whole world. So that's like the plot of the book, because I don't think I explained that properly, and I feel like the concept was really there, but the execution was very poor. Tari Matthew's writing, hopefully I'm saying her name right, her writing is very poetic in the sense that every single sentence is a metaphor, or every other sentence is a metaphor. There's so many metaphors to the point where I start losing track of what we're even talking about. And I love poetic writing, but I like it when it's done with discretion and it's done judiciously. Like, it was so metaphorical at some points where I was really like, what is this babe yapping about? And my sister was reading this book at the same time as me, and she was talking about how like, oh, it's because the main character is insane. But like, no, because I get it when things are stylistic choices, and I can see when things are stylistic choices, but this wasn't a stylistic choice. You are genuinely just yapping. You're just yapping. It's just straight yap. It's just straight yap. And I wish I had examples to give you guys, but I do not, because the book... Oh, actually, I do have the book with me, but like I said, I'm hungry and I want to go. I want to go eat my food. I'm sorry. I love you and I'd love to spend all my time with you, but I'm so hungry. The next book I read is a book called One Way Ticket to Earth. This is just a short story that I was actually sent as an ARC read, and it's by an author called Daniel Vaccaro, and it's about this boy who passes away very, very young, and he basically reincarnates on this whole other planet. Like, he is a whole alien, and he feels a connection to his parents even whilst he's on this other planet. This is a very short story, like it's 20 pages long, and he's basically just trying to find his way back to his parents because he can feel that connection so strongly. There's a 4-leaf clover that his parents gave him whilst he was in hospital, and he reincarnates with that 4-leaf clover, so they always have that like invisible string tying them together. This was such a lovely story, and it was very emotional, but because it was a short story, the pacing was so off. Like, we would fast forward 5 years in a sentence and it was just like, sorry, where did the rest of the story go? And I felt like the resolution as well, it didn't feel as impactful as maybe I wanted it to, but it was still so emotional, and it genuinely was such a good read. So I'm putting it into Beautiful Gowns because I would recommend, if you want to read a short story or just getting into that, this is a short story that I would recommend. Like, it was very lovely, but it also felt very underdeveloped for me, but I think that was just because it was a short story and, you know, we have plot to get through, so things weren't as developed as maybe I would have liked them to be. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Idol Effect by MC Sakala. This was a book that was sent to me as an ARC read, and I have been following Minima's like writing journey for so long. I've been following her on Instagram for so long. So I was going to buy this book anyway, but when I found out she was doing ARC reads, I was like, please send me it. And this book was huge. This book is huge. I was reading it on ebook, so it was like 400 and something pages, but apparently the paperback is like 600 plus pages, and I don't ever think that a YA romance should ever be reaching those many words. And because it was initially published on Wattpad, I think that's why it was so long, because there were so many scenes that were like cute little scenes but didn't need to be there for the sake of the plot. And I feel like if this was traditionally published, a lot of the scenes and a lot of the word count, at least 200 pages could have been shed from this book. But it was so enjoyable. It is about this main character, Kat, and she lives in Korea. Her dad is a huge music producer. He's one of the hugest music producers in the world. Every year they go on holiday to this private island that they live in, and this year one of her dad's friend's children are living with them. Spoiler alert, because we know this because in the blurb she tells us, and also in all the promo for the book, we know that he's this huge like K-pop idol and this huge star. But in the book, we don't know that, and Kat doesn't know that. So like, when you're reading the book, you don't actually know. There's so many secrets that the main characters have that we don't actually know, but we do know because it's in the blur. So that felt quite annoying for me, because I was like, it was like 400 pages of her speculating what all of these secrets meant. But like, because we knew the whole time, it just felt like very repetitive and annoying. It's like, why are you speculating? Like, we know. But this book was so lovely. The setting was so lovely. There were so many settings. We have settings in Korea, we have settings in Japan, we have settings in the private island, we have settings in Zambia, I think, which is where the main character is originally from, and before they moved to Korea for her dad's work. It's just such a beautiful book, and Minima's writing is so poetic, and poetic in a good way. I saw some reviews saying that like there was poetic lines in places where they didn't need to be, to the point where it didn't make sense, and I can see that, but I just feel like her writing is just so beautiful. I was highlighting things like crazy when I was reading this, especially because it was an ebook, so it was really nice to just highlight stuff. I didn't even explain it fully, but Kat and Sailor, the main character, we basically see them and their relationship grow. Kat is a YouTuber. She has this whole astrology YouTube channel, and one of the main things that Sailor does is like, he's like, oh, I can be in your videos, but you can't check the comments, obviously because he has this crazy fan base, and if she checked the comments then she would know that secret, and he didn't want her to know the secret. Her whole family didn't tell her the secret. Everyone knew but her. And there's also, Sailor struggles with mental health issues as well, and there's good mental health representation in this book. But yeah, there are some things I didn't really like. For starters, this book was written from Kat's point of view, but it would randomly jump to third person sometimes. Like, it would randomly jump to third person, and it would randomly jump point of view as well sometimes, with like no justification, no rhyme or reason. And also, I could tell that it maybe could have gone through a few more rounds of editing, because there were things that just weren't I didn't actually write a whole review. This is the first time I actually ever wrote a review for a book, which is on Amazon, so you can actually go and read my review if you want. But I did really enjoy this book, and I would definitely recommend it to people, and I still think about these characters and I really love them. But there were just a lot of things that I literally can't even remember off the top of my head right now, that I just didn't really enjoy too much and kind of put me off rating this book 5 stars. Like, I don't think giving it 5 stars would be fair to the other books in the 5-star category, but it was definitely a 4-star read. Like, I really enjoyed this. So this is going into wait, they don't love you like I love you, because they don't love you like I love you. They really don't. Finally, the last book that I'm going to speak about is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This book was a book that I was so excited to read. This was like my most anticipated read of 2024 because it was TikTok viral. Everybody knows about Powerless. Everyone was speaking about Powerless. It's about this main character, Payden, and she lives in a society where there are elites that have powers and ordinaries that don't have powers, and if you don't have power, you are killed. They don't want anyone who's not powerful walking their streets because they think that the powerless people are going to take the elite people and their magic. There are mundanes. Mundanes are people who have powers, but their powers are kind of like not really that cool, and they're the people that like live in the slums and the poor areas. Payden has no powers, but she is cosplaying, like she is pretending to have powers as a psychic, because that's a mundane power, and you can use wit and brain to pretend you are psychic. She gets drafted into these trials that their kingdom has for literally no reason whatsoever. Like, there's literally no reason for these trials. It's not like in Fourth Wing or in like Hunger Games, for example, where like the trials kind of like make sense. Like, I feel like it was trying to be Hunger Games, but it just didn't make sense to me why they were having trials in Powerless. Like, it was literally just for funsies. It was just for funsies. It just didn't make sense. Like, I feel like in Hunger Games, they had the Hunger Games because the powerful people were trying to exert their dominance on like all of the rebellious lower people, but in Powerless, like, it was just for funsies. It didn't make sense to me. But I was really excited for this book because this plot sounds so amazing, but it was so underwhelming. I first started reading it in April, but I didn't finish it. I don't remember why I didn't finish it. It wasn't because I didn't like it. I think I just stopped reading it and just forgot about it. But then I bought the physical copy, but I started listening to it as an audiobook because I'd already read like 100 pages and I didn't want to reread that. And as an audiobook, it was so good. I really enjoyed the audiobook because it was so, felt like a movie, you know. We had it was a dual POV book, so we had 2 different voices for both POVs, and it felt like watching a movie. But then when I went back to reading the book, it was so boring and I didn't want to read it anymore. And I think the reason for this is because this book is like 500 pages of dialogue. The plot is so lacking that like I couldn't even tell you the plot of the book. Like, I know I just gave you like what it's about, but all of that, I don't know, it's basically summarized in the first like 5 pages of the book, and then the rest of the plot, I don't really know what it is. Like, what do we want to gain from this story? I could not tell you. I feel like it started to be weaved in, like, we have rebellious people who are obviously rebelling against the powerful people, but they have such a small role in this book that it didn't even feel like they were a true plot point. The entire plot just felt like Kai, the male main character who is the prince, and Payden falling in love. It was like 500 pages of flirting and banter, and at some point it's like, when are we going to have meaningful conversations and find out meaningful information? And it really almost put me in a slump where, like, at first when I was listening to the audiobook, I loved listening to it and I always wanted to be listening to it because it really did feel like a movie. But then it just became very repetitive, where it was trial, Kai and Payden bantering for a bit, trial, Kai and Payden bantering. It was promoted as enemies to lovers, but they were never really enemies. They're only enemies because she is an ordinary and his job is quite literally to kill the ordinaries, but he doesn't know that she's an ordinary, right? He doesn't know that she's an ordinary, so she is never his enemy. He is her enemy in her head, I suppose, because realistically she always liked him. So it's not even an enemies to lovers, which is the way it was branded. There's no, like, when I read enemies to lovers books, I need you to be enemies. I need you to actually be enemies. I need you to not like each other. I need you to be, you know, wanting each other's downfall. and they just didn't. It was just always banter. Like at some point it gets to a point where like, I'm tired of banter now. When are we gonna find out about, like, I don't know, your family trauma? Like the characters had nothing in common to me, and it didn't make sense why they liked each other. It felt like they liked each other because we were told that they like each other. If that makes sense, like I didn't really actually see any chemistry between them. Therefore, I didn't want to finish the book, and I almost DNF'd it again, but I did finish it. And to be honest with you, I listened to the last few chapters as an audiobook because I feel like that was the only way that I was going to be able to get through it. And I did enjoy those last few chapters. I felt like the action was good, but all in all, this book is not really, like, it doesn't have nice scenes, doesn't have nice fighting scenes. The trials feel so futile and so pointless. Like there's at one point where they're in a forest and like the whole point is just survive being in the forest. But instead of us focusing on them surviving in the forest and how they do that, we're watching Kai and Payden slow dance in the moonlight for no reason. Mind you, at this point, they've known each other for maybe a few days and they're still supposed to be enemies. And it was just like, why are you doing this? And they knew they were being recorded as well. Like, they are being recorded, the whole trials are recorded and broadcasted to the entire kingdom. And it's like, why are you acting like, I don't know. But this book, the audiobook would make me want to give this book a high rating, because I actually really did enjoy listening to the audiobook at some points, where other points just got really boring, to the point where I would literally zone out. Like I'd be walking to uni listening to the audiobook and I would zone out and start thinking about other stuff because it lost me. But reading the book could genuinely want to make me put it into the 2-star category. And also the fact that there just wasn't really any plot for me, and I don't really like the two main characters together all too much. Like the banter is bantering, I suppose, but it just felt like sickening, like sickly. It was like sickly banter at some point, to the point where it's like, guys, we get it, you have banter, we get it, please move on. So overall, I'm putting the book into beautiful gowns. I think that there was plot that could have been good and plot that could have been nice. It just wasn't my favorite. And yes, so yes, that is it. This is like the longest video I have ever filmed. I really didn't think that I'd be filming it for this long. I thought I could get through this a lot quicker than I did. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. Comment down below the book emoji, because obviously this is a video where I'm tier ranking all of my favorite books. If you did like it, don't forget to hit the like button. Also make sure to subscribe to my channel. I post videos about my own writing journey mainly, but I also post reading videos as well. So if you enjoy reading and writing content, then this is the place to be. You can sign up to my newsletter, because in my newsletter is basically all my videos, but in like a condensed form, and you get so many writing updates through there. I've actually got an update coming soon because I've been in contact with editors, and I'm actually deciding who my editor is going to be today. If you're on the newsletter, you would already know who my editor is. If you're not in the newsletter, sorry, you missed out. Yes, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it. I'm so hungry. I'm gonna go eat some food, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.